Hi guys, it's me ShazzaHD and welcome tonight to this preview for qualifying tomorrow for the 2022 Monaco Grand Prix. Of course, qualifying in Monaco, as we all know, is the most important qualifying session of any Formula 1 season. Sorry. If you get pole in Monaco, chances of you winning at least 90%. It is that great of a pole position to get. And what we're going to be doing this evening is going through all the teams, going through how they looked today in practice, also going into how the drivers or teams, felt they did, reading through some quotes from them themselves. Also, we'll be getting into some stats during the night and some data to give us the best, look forward to qualifying that we can have. To try and formulate, hopefully, the best opinion we can have going to qualifying as to who is going to end up where in the fight for pole, the fight for the rest of the top 10, and of course the midfield and the back as well. So that's what we're going to be doing this evening in this qualifying preview. Great to have you all here. Hopefully you guys are doing well no matter what time it is in your part of the world, no matter what part of the world you're from, no matter what you're going through. Hopefully you're having the best day possibly you can be having, given whatever circumstances you're going through. And you're hopefully with me tonight. You will be previewing this qualifying session coming up tomorrow. Make sure to post your comments in the live chat during the stream about what you think is going to happen for all the teams and drivers, and I'll make sure to read out your comments when I get to them later on in the stream. But we had a very hot Friday practice today in Monaco, and there were some surprises in who ended up in certain positions, but when it comes to the very front, it wasn't, to be honest, that surprising given what I expected coming into the weekend. So let's now get into the results from practice 2. So here you go. Charles Leclerc ended up in P1. Carlos Sainz finished in second place. So Ferrari 1-2 in practice. Of course, the last time they won here in Monaco, back in 2017, they had a front row in qualifying. If they get the front row tomorrow, then pretty much guarantees them victory. Then Sergio Perez third, Max Verstappen fourth. Very surprising that Sergio ended up quicker than Max around Monaco in 2 consecutive practice sessions. I mean, Max, we know when it really matters, how much his game steps up, but that is definitely surprising, that lack of speed he had compared to Sergio Perez. He did at times show some good speed, but so did Sergio Perez. But certainly you would expect Max to be quicker around a circuit like this, of course. Lando Norris in 5th, McLaren looking actually a bit better than I originally thought they would. And Norris on course for a similar result in qualifying to what he had last year, which was 5th also that year. George Russell 6th for Mercedes in practice 2. Then Gasly 7th. Gasly always very good around here, and we'll get onto them later. Alonso 8th, Vettel 9th, and then Tsunoda in 10th. And then the rest of the order of Magnussen 11th, Hamilton in 12th, Lewis Hamilton having a very hard day at the office. We'll get into that soon enough and get into just what was the issues of Hamilton exactly. And then Valtteri Bottas 13th. Alfa Romeo didn't have the most representative day due to reliability problems, so we'll get into exactly what happened for them soon enough. And then Alex Albon 14th, Zhou Guanyu 15th, Lance Stroll 16th, and then Mick Schumacher in 17th, of course. Mick Schumacher in practice 1 suffered a reliability problem, so that's why he isn't quite, say at the moment, up to grips with the Monaco track that, say, his teammate Kevin Magnussen is. And then Ocon 18th, who is struggling a lot for some reason. And then Nicholas Latifi 19th. Daniel Ricciardo only did 2 laps in practice 2. Of course, he crashed out at the exit of the swimming pool after a pretty dramatic spin or losing of the rear end in the fast chicane that also Sebastian Vettel had, but somehow made a save of the day. But let's now get on to the teams, and we'll start, of course, with Ferrari. And Ferrari, what they did today was exactly what I thought they would look like coming into the weekend. They would just have the quicker car, especially over a single lap. And of course, single lap pace is what matters in Monaco. Red Bull at times did show some good speed, but all in all, Ferrari had the edge over Red Bull, and especially in that final sector, the Ferrari did look very nice in that final sector, especially on the exit of the swimming pool, especially with Charles Leclerc, of course, a place where Leclerc had an accident in last year's qualifying session that, of course, ended up costing him starting the race. So, yeah, good to see that Ferrari haven't really been caught out by anything. You know, they've come to the Monaco Grand Prix weekend and are delivering exactly what probably they thought they would and what we all thought they would. That is good to see from their perspective. And yeah, Ferrari, after what we've seen in practice today, they're absolutely on target for exactly what they need tomorrow, which of course is pole position with Charles Leclerc. And as long as he finishes the race and Ferrari don't mess it up with a bad pit stop or strategy call or something like that, then Charles Leclerc should, if he does get pole, win this race, which he has to do for his World Championship bid, and of course Ferrari's World Championship bid as well. But yeah, after practice today, if I was a Ferrari fan, I'd be feeling pretty confident about, you know, the possibility of that happening. You know, pole position and race win. Can they get the front row? It depends on two things. One, does Carlos Sainz, when the pressure of qualifying in Monaco, which is, it's a massive pressure, it really is, qualifying Monaco, when that pressure arrives, will he be able to deliver the type of pace we saw in practice too? If he can, it's very possible, because the Ferrari car looks really strong around this circuit. But if he doesn't, then Max Verstappen, I think Max Verstappen will still be, as we'll get into in a moment, I think he will still be the quickest of the two Red Bull drivers. And I think Red Bull will be closer to Ferrari tomorrow. We have seen this a couple times this season where Red Bull have, on qualifying day, and we certainly saw it last year, where on qualifying day they would show their real speed to be a lot quicker than they appeared in Friday practice. So I certainly expect Red Bull to be closer to Ferrari tomorrow, but like I said, I still think Ferrari will have the edge over Red Bull. But a 1-2 is possible. It is absolutely possible, but again, it depends on, can Sainz deliver in that qualifying pressure? Hopefully from their perspective he can, and it does depend also on, do Red Bull close the gap a bit for qualifying when they start to show their real pace? And also, what does Max Verstappen do? Can Max Verstappen pull out a good enough lap to make sure he is at worst in second place, which has to be really the aim from their perspective. But from Ferrari's perspective, as long as Charles Leclerc doesn't make the mistake of last year and doesn't have any reliability problems that of course we saw for him in Spain, which of course happened in the race and caused him to lose 25 or even 26 certain points, then he should be fine for pole position. But here are some stats when it comes to Ferrari in qualifying. The last race start in Monaco from pole position was in 2017 with Kimi Räikkönen. Of course, that year, Räikkönen was on pole. His teammate, Sebastian Vettel, was second. It was a Ferrari 1-2. And then it was a Ferrari 1-2 in the race as well, but with Vettel ahead of Räikkönen. So for Ferrari, need pretty much a similar weekend. The only thing they don't need is having to, if, say, Sainz was to be ahead of Leclerc on the grid, that would be a bit tricky in terms of how to get Leclerc ahead, which they would have to try and do, because Leclerc, obviously, is the man for them in the Drivers' Championship. But Ferrari haven't actually, when it comes to pole position in Monaco, don't have that great of a record here in Monaco. They've only started the Monaco Grand Prix on pole 3 times since the year 2000. The first one was Michael Schumacher in the year 2000. That year he led by a country mile, but then his, I think, suspension broke, so he didn't finish the race. And then 2008, Felipe Massa got pole. I think it was a Ferrari front row that day, but then that was the wet race that Hamilton won back then. And yeah, Massa had a pretty tough time. And then the only other one was, like I said, 2017. But that year, thankfully for Ferrari, it went very, very well. Went perfectly, in fact, for the team. So even though they've got a very good car this weekend, in terms of history, not the greatest place for them in terms of starting Monaco Grand Prix on pole position. But as long as the two drivers do their best and the team doesn't make any massive mistakes, I don't see how Ferrari won't be on pole position. It's going to take a lot from this team, Red Bull Racing, if they're going to stop the Scuderia from getting pole in Monaco for the first time, or start the race on pole for the first time in 5 years. And I mean, Red Bull, they didn't look too bad today. At times, they weren't too far away from Ferrari. Of course, in practice one, Perez, ended up in second place and was only a few hundredths away. But in practice two, more representative conditions, because of course it's closer. The start time of practice two today was closer to what the start time is going to be for qualifying tomorrow. Red Bull, in the end, just simply lacked a quarter of a second, or not even a quarter of a second, about a third of a second, really, to the two Ferraris, who just had enough speed over the two Red Bulls to be clearly ahead. I do think, though, that Red Bull will be closer tomorrow, because, like I said, Red Bull do tend to be closer on qualifying day and just show more speed on qualifying day than they do show on Friday practice day. We saw that last year. We've seen that at times this year. Also, you got to remember, Red Bull have had a lot more reliability problems than Ferrari this season, so they have a lot more reasons to turn their engines down and not quite, give it a go, say on a Friday, compared to, say, a Ferrari-powered team or a Mercedes-powered team. So that's, I think, definite reasons why Red Bull, will show more speed tomorrow, because they don't have to, and they shouldn't have to, on a Friday. But yeah, the biggest area of interest really is what's going on with Max Verstappen in terms of, why is Sergio Perez outdone him in 2 consecutive practice sessions? When it matters most, I still think Max Verstappen will be ahead of Perez, but I don't know, it's just very surprising to me. I mean, Sergio, a couple times here in the past in Monaco, has had some decent qualifying results, considering the cars he's driven in those particular years, but if he was to out-qualify Max Verstappen, that would probably be, out-qualify Max at Monaco, that would probably be his best ever qualifying effort that he's ever put in, to out-qualify a driver of such talent around a track like this. So it would be great if he could do it, but I just still think it's, in the end, going to be Max Verstappen ahead of Sergio Perez. And you never know with Max, he could be saving up just a slight bit for qualifying, and knows exactly when to really start getting close to those barriers. But yeah, Red Bull, they still look good. They're not a million miles away from Ferrari, and like I said, I don't think they'll be 3.5, 4 tenths of a second slower than Ferrari in qualifying. I don't think that'll be the case. I think it's more likely to be at most 2 tenths at most. I think you'll probably see Max, a tenth or tenth and a half away, probably at most on his side of things. So yeah, I think they'll still be fine, still be very competitive. What they need to do though, Red Bull, is make sure they get a car on the front row, because like I said, if Ferrari lock out the front row, and as long as they start the race from the front row, they will win the race, unless it rains or something mental happens in dry conditions, which something pretty mental, honestly, would have to happen to cause Ferrari to somehow lose a 1-2 front row lockout start in Monaco to Red Bull. It really would have to take something very special. So Red Bull's aim has got to be, I'd say, Verstappen to be, say, second, realistically. We'll say Sergio Perez in obviously third or fourth. If he can get third, that'd be great, but realistically, I'd probably say Perez in fourth. And then, yeah, for the race, then obviously they can go from there. Obviously, we won't get to the race quite yet, because I will get to my race preview later on in the Grand Prix weekend. But yeah, second and fourth, I think, would be a good result for them. Just to make sure they keep Ferrari on their toes. Even though it is still very hard, of course, to overtake at Monaco, they don't want to be giving Ferrari a full front row lockout, because, I mean, at Monaco, that's just too easy of a gift to Ferrari in a championship fight. So I think Red Bull, if they can get that, they should be fine then for the race. And, even though, like I said, I'm going to talk more about their race when we get to the race preview stream, which will be on Sunday. I mean, they can still win the race if, say, Max starts from second and after the first corner is still in second place. They can still win the race, because you never know what could happen with pit stops. Ferrari could get a pit stop wrong, could make the wrong strategy call. Safety cars could cause some havoc, virtual safety cars, stuff like that. So they can still win the race, absolutely, if they were to qualify in second place, say, with Max Verstappen. But I don't think there's any room necessarily to panic. I mean, Red Bull, I think their drivers did actually say that they were surprised about the gap that it was from Leclerc and Sainz back to Perez and Verstappen themselves. But at the end of the day, it is only practice. But we'll get to these stats for Red Bull for qualifying. And Red Bull have a decent record, actually, when it comes to qualifying in Monaco. Max Verstappen, he's never had a pole position in Monaco, in terms of he hasn't, on the Saturday, finished in first place. I have to make sure I clarify that, because, of course, last year, he started on pole, but he didn't get pole on the Saturday. That was Charles Leclerc, who, of course, got it on the Saturday. But Max, again, on the Saturday, he's never gone and got pole position in Monaco, not yet. But Red Bull in Monaco have started on pole 6 times. That is pretty good, considering they've only had or been a front-running team since 2009, which was 13 years ago. That's once every 2 years almost on average to be on pole position at the Monaco Grand Prix. And those years, if you're wondering, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2016, 2018, and last year, those are the 6 times they've started the race. Again, clarify, started the Monaco Grand Prix on pole. So, a very good record they do have in Monaco. And also, for race victories, they have a good record as well of, 4 victories in Monaco. And they should have had a 5th in 2016 as well. So, yeah, it's been a very good track for the Red Bull team, and I have no doubt that tomorrow they'll be pretty competitive. Now, we'll get onto the Mercedes team, who did not have that good of a day, unfortunately. We were expecting, or maybe a bit too much, actually, from them coming into this weekend, but what they ended up showing us is that they are still clearly nowhere near the level of Ferrari and Red Bull. Certainly around a bumpy and tricky Monaco Grand Prix circuit. In the first practice session, George Russell didn't really show us that much, but then in practice 2 started to show a bit more and then finished up in 6th place. I think Mercedes will be very disappointed that they weren't even the quickest car after the 2 Ferraris and Red Bulls. I think they'll be very disappointed with that, because it almost kind of shows that they've almost reverted back to where they were before the Spanish Grand Prix, even though they've brought upgrades to this car. So yeah, not good from that perspective. And I mean, from Russell's perspective, I didn't really notice anything dramatic in terms of why he was slower, say, than the 2 Ferraris and Red Bulls. It just didn't look as quick as the 2 Ferraris and Red Bulls. And we know in the slower speed corners that the Mercedes is lacking a bit. We saw that in Barcelona, and I think we're seeing that here, because in that final sector, they are giving up quite a bit of time to those front two teams, and that is really a big reason why they are just lacking compared to the absolute top teams. For Lewis Hamilton, though, not only did he have to deal with, Mercedes not being that quick in all reality, he also had to deal with a lot of bouncing and problems when it came to just the general ride of his car. And I'll just quickly read out this quote from him about, his day today. He said, "I just didn't get to put great laps together. A good sector 1 and 2's almost there, then 3 wasn't there. I think the best laps of the day were really like practice 1, the first few laps. We'll study the data and try to figure out how we can improve the bumps and really hope for a better day. It feels like the car's almost got the potential to be almost up there with the guys, but there's all these things that are just kind of hindering." And then Hamilton complained about the discomfort he experienced due to bumping several times during practice. And then he said, "It's probably the bumpiest track I've ever driven, so that makes it difficult, but also just generally our car bounces a lot." While Mercedes said they successfully addressed their porpoising problems in Spain, Hamilton said it was a different kind of bouncing. He said, quote, "It's different bouncing to what we've experienced in the past. It's a lower speed also, but it's not aero. I think it's just the bumps on the track making it worse. Otherwise, it's not really having to learn the track different. It's just fighting the car to put a lap together is, wow, holy crap, it's a lot different. I don't remember experiencing it like that before." Well, Toto Wolff did come out, I think, after practice 1 and say that a reason why it was bouncing a lot is because they stiffly sprung the suspension. And he believed that was the reason why, but it seemed as though it was still a bit of an issue in practice 2 as well. And maybe it just is the case, because like I said in that article from racefans.net, Mercedes, while they say they think they've solved the porpoising problem, that doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to happen again. I think they more so, they know why now it happens, but that doesn't mean they can always stop it from happening. I mean, Ferrari have porpoising with their car still to a certain extent, but it just doesn't affect them as bad as it does Mercedes. But I think the thing is with this track, in terms of that happening, I mean, at the end of the day, the Mercedes car might just be a very bumpy car, but also this track is way bumpier, obviously, a street circuit, than the Circuit de Catalunya. The Circuit de Catalunya is a purpose-built racetrack, and it's been resurfaced, plenty of times and all of that. And obviously Monaco is Monaco. So, it's going to be more of an issue around a track like this than it would be at a smoother racetrack for Mercedes. And, this is probably just going to be an issue for them, and they're just going to have to try and put the best type of fix on it that they can to limit it. I don't think they can totally get rid of it, Mercedes. I just think I think Ferrari have this also, where they can't get rid of it. It's just a thing their car has. Seemingly the Red Bull doesn't have it at all. But yeah, like with Ferrari and Mercedes, I think at this point they have this porpoising or bouncing that they have, and it's just a characteristic of the car. But the only thing they can do at this point is just make it as least effective or happen as less as possible through, things they do to the car to make it less of a problem. But I mean, for Mercedes, at the end of the day, at the bumpier tracks we go to, it's going to be more of a problem for them. I mean, looking ahead on the calendar, Baku shouldn't be a massive problem, because I mean, the only real high speed part of the track is obviously that very long pit straight, where they'll be bumping quite a bit down that pit straight, but the rest of the track isn't that bumpy. I mean, the straight in between turn 2 and turn 3 is quite bumpy, but after that, it's not actually that bumpy. It's quite a smooth surface. But then when we go to Montreal, which is the race after Baku, Montreal is a very bumpy circuit. there's bumps all over the place. So it's probably going to happen there. Maybe at Silverstone as well. Certainly the older racetracks, it's going to be more of a problem for the Mercedes team. I mean, look at Imola. Imola, old racetrack that, you know, people have been racing around there for so long, and look how bad the porpoising and bouncing was for Mercedes at Imola. It was really bad. So it's just going to be an issue for them, and they're just going to have to limit it as much as they can, but they're not going to totally get rid of it. And I think they even said, I think I saw a quote a couple days ago from them saying that, you know, saying from them that they don't, you know, they don't think that it's gone forever, that, you know, that it will come up again. They've just really been able to find a solution to the problem, which, or, you know, most of a solution to the problem, which is a good thing, but it is still going to crop up from time to time for sure with this team. But yeah, not a great Friday practice day. The pace isn't quite there with Mercedes, to be honest. And I think going into qualifying, I think the best you can hope for, really, if you're a Mercedes fan, is a third row lockout by the looks of it. I was hoping that they would maybe be able to get up to like third, fourth, if the drivers really pulled out a great lap and had the confidence in the car, and the car was, you know, doing well enough. But it just isn't, from the looks of it. It just doesn't look like it's on the same level as Ferrari and Red Bull. So like I said, the best they can hope for is a third row lockout. But with the competition they've got, you know, Norris, Gasly, even Alonso, Magnussen at times, Tsunoda as well at times. And you never know, you know, what Alfa Romeo could do when they start to show, I think, more representative pace from themselves. So we'll see what happens, but they're not going to be as competitive, I don't think, as we thought they would. But I'll quickly show some qualifying stats for Mercedes, because it is actually a pretty good track for them when it comes to qualifying. So their last pole in Monaco, and Hamilton's last pole in Monaco, was in 2019. Hamilton doesn't actually have that great of a record when it comes to pole position in Monaco. I think he only has 2 pole positions in Monaco in his entire career. So, yeah, it's never been a great circuit for him in terms of getting pole position. Then again, hasn't necessarily every year had the car to achieve it. But Mercedes have had a car inside the top 3 on the grid for every Monaco Grand Prix since 2012. That is how strong they are in Monaco. Back in 2012, obviously Michael Schumacher finished first in qualifying but started 6th. And that meant that Nico Rosberg, the other Mercedes driver, started second and actually finished in second that day. And that started it off, of course. They won in 2013, 14, 15, 16, obviously won in 2019 and got podiums. They got a podium in 2018, and then, 2017 they didn't finish on the podium, but they did have a car in the top 3 on the grid from qualifying, which was Valtteri Bottas in 3rd place that year. So, like I said, it's a good track for them in terms of history when it comes to qualifying. So maybe we'll see a bit better from them tomorrow, but today wasn't that great, I have to say. Now, we will move on to the McLaren team. And McLaren had, I'll just quickly adjust this picture, McLaren had a pretty good day. Lando Norris ended up 5th in both sessions. Very, very good from him. We saw last year, he was amazing last year in Monaco. 5th he was in qualifying last year, and then finished on the podium and got McLaren's first podium in Monaco for like 10 years at that point. And given his speed so far this weekend, I don't think he'll be any higher than 5th if he was to be a definite contender for that actual 5th place. Hopefully, from their perspective, McLaren's perspective and Norris's perspective, hopefully for them, Mercedes don't have more, to show. Hopefully, the pace we've seen from them is what they have. Again, from McLaren's perspective, they'll be hoping that. But yeah, with Norris, if he can get up to 5th, and then if it is a wet race possibly on Sunday, you never know what could happen. He could get another podium. So Lando, yeah, doing very, very well, driving great. For Daniel Ricciardo, though, he had a very good first session in practice 1, 7th place, and was on pace. I mean, he wasn't as quick as Norris, but he was kind of on pace with him and was pretty much where you would hope he would be, given that Lando is the team leader of McLaren at this point. But then in practice 2, he ended up spinning through the exit of the swimming pool, losing the rear end through the middle of that very fast chicane, and then, yeah, spinning, hitting his front wing off, and then ended up piling into the barriers. And I'll just quickly read out this quote from him. He said, Ricciardo, that his crash in practice happened because he had been too ambitious with the car's setup. Let me just read the quote where it says about the setup. He said, I think honestly we pushed a few things with setup. Obviously we're trying, but pushed a little too far, probably in a couple of areas. I tried my best to save, but we couldn't. And then he says, I know they'll fix it. Obviously, we missed all session, but I'm okay. We'll be ready to go tomorrow. The morning was good. We'll use that. And Lando had a pretty good session. So, yeah, maybe just going for it a bit too much was Ricciardo. Definitely pushing too hard, but maybe the setup was just a bit too overeager, I guess you could say. I mean, obviously, that's what his opinion is of what happened. But I hope Ricciardo doesn't lose any confidence from it, because if he can keep up the speed he showed in practice 1, he is right in there for a good result. Maybe not a top 6, result, but certainly like an 8th or a 9th, which honestly, given his season so far, that would be pretty good. To be honest, if I was McLaren, I would be giving Ricciardo the aim of an 8th, probably. 8th or better in qualifying, and then with Norris you'd probably have to say the aim for him would have to be 5th or 6th on the grid, given the pace that Norris showed in practice 1 and 2 today. But yeah, I really hope Ricciardo doesn't get too down about what's happened, because he's got the pace, thankfully, that he didn't have seemingly at last year's Monaco Grand Prix. But those are the top teams, or the top 4 teams. We'll come on in a minute to you guys in the chat, and then of course after that we'll go on to the rest of the teams. But quickly, before I do that, let me get into this, which is the sector time data from practice 2. By the way, full credit for this whole graphic to Lights Out F1 blog on Twitter. Make sure to go follow him on Twitter, because he's a great Twitter account. I remember on my old Twitter account, I used to follow him, and just, the information he posts is top notch. So here is the sector time data from practice 2. So you can see Ferrari topping all the sectors, and a 10th and almost 2 tenths quicker in the first sector, which is very impressive because it's only 19 seconds, and most of that is full throttle. So Ferrari really strong in the first sector. Second sector, pretty good. Not great, but yeah, pretty good. But the final sector, which, like I said earlier, the Ferrari in that final sector in the slow corners looks really good, and that's really what is helping them pull out the lap time they have so far this weekend. You can see that in the final sector. 1-2, they were in that final sector, and the next closest car, Perez, almost 2 tenths of a second slower than Leclerc. And again, in 19 seconds of a final sector, to be that quick over the rest of the field is pretty impressive. So yeah, great job there by Ferrari, and if they can replicate that tomorrow, they will be looking very, very good. Also, things to look out for. So Red Bull, definitely final sector, they need to improve there. Maybe just they've got a bit too much understeer in the car, I'm not sure. I mean, in the slow corners, you do need a good front end, really, in all slow corners, really, around any track. But maybe it's that, maybe it's something else. Maybe, like I said, maybe they've just got the power unit turned down a slight notch. First sector, also might point to them maybe not using as much power as possible, because the first sector is mostly full throttle and they are not actually that quick in the first sector. The second sector, though, they are pretty much as quick as certainly Leclerc, but not quite as quick as Carlos Sainz. With Mercedes, though, the first sector kind of points to what we saw in Barcelona, where the first sector in Barcelona, which was the most flat-out sector, they were pretty quick. But when we got on towards the rest of the lap, they just dropped off. Sector 2 in practice 2, Russell almost 3/10 down, and then pretty much 3/10 down in sector 3. The Mercedes just doesn't. I mean, because you have the slow corners in the first half of the second sector, and then pretty much the final sector is about slow corners. That's really why Mercedes are giving up that lap time, and why the ideal lap overall, they are 7/10 off the pace, and quite a bit off actually Norris's best sectors. Lando Norris doing a superb job to be ahead of one of the Red Bulls in both sector 1 and sector 3. So yeah, Norris and McLaren looking pretty good, and as good, if maybe not better, than Mercedes around this track. And then AlphaTauri as well, looking very, very good. Surprisingly good in Sector 2 and Sector 3 especially, were AlphaTauri. Also, good to see Magnussen having a good Sector 2. And look at Alex Albon there in the final sector in the top 10. That's absolutely amazing to be even quicker than Lewis Hamilton in the Works Mercedes in the final sector alone. And as the lap wears on, looks as though Alonso and the Alpine car just looking in general a bit better. But I mean, tomorrow it's probably going to change around slightly. But if what we saw today was pretty much what we're going to get tomorrow, then you'd have to say Ferrari first, Red Bull second, McLaren third, Mercedes fourth, AlphaTauri fifth, and then after that maybe Alpine or Haas. Just after that. But we have to remember also Alfa Romeo. I don't think we've quite seen what they can do so far this weekend. But I'll move on to some pictures of the other top teams, and yeah, we'll go on to the midfield teams soon enough. But I just want to quickly come to you guys in the chat to see what you guys are saying, answer any questions and all of that. Yeah, to make sure to keep your comments coming in the live chat, and I'll make sure to read them out in a moment. Just want to say to anyone new watching, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, because I will be live twice tomorrow for qualifying day in Monaco. Firstly at 11:45 a.m. UK time for the practice 3 watch along, and then live again at 2:30 p.m. UK time for the qualifying watch along. The most important, again, qualifying session of the season. It'll be great to have you along for that. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe, bottom right of the screen, and as well, don't forget to smash the like button, share this video and channel everywhere you can, and as well, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5. By the way, great to see so many of you here, which I've had, I think, previously on these streams. Yeah, great to see all of you here. Right, let's get into some comments. Josiah says, I mean, Sainz is on fraud watch. That's a funny way of putting it. So yeah, Sainz is on fraud watch, so it is possible for Ferrari to lose it. I mean, yeah, for the front row, I'm not sure in myself that they'll get the front row, because I think, yeah, with Sainz's form at the minute, it's a bit risky to be betting on that if you were to. Let me look. Some other comments here. Hammer Time lost a shock absorber, still porpoises, according to G Walker. Just being silly, not a Hamilton fan. Okay. Baku Mercedes will get called out on flexi wings. They are dumping drag on the straight, says Solomon. Always cheating if it's not wide DRS then permitted. It's flexi wings. There was one guy, is it Tim Coronel? I think on Twitter, he's part of the Ziggo Sport guys who do obviously the F1 coverage in Holland, who posted a video on Twitter. I think it was on Friday or Saturday of the Spanish Grand Prix weekend. So this would have been a week ago. And he was him filming the screen of the Mercedes front wing flapping. And he was like, is this not a flexi wing? And the thing is, it's hard to say, because it's hard to say whether it's like the riding of certain curbs or certain piece of track maybe causing it to move about, or, you know, also following, I think, other cars makes the front wing flaps move a bit. So I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, to be honest, with the FIA, if Mercedes have a flexi front wing, they're going to find it eventually. Mercedes are not going to get away with it eventually. Every team who's had a part of their car that isn't quite legal eventually gets caught. So if they are, you know, having, if they do have a flexi front wing, sometime this season they'll get caught, if that actually is the case. But until that happens, we'll leave it at that. Let's look at some other comments here. Lando will win the World Championship as soon as he's in a car that can fight for it, says Lake Ishikawa, I think it is. Sorry if I've mispronounced your last name there. It depends. It depends on other factors, not just if he's in a good enough car, because it depends on who's his competition, how quick is the car he's in comparison to the other cars he's competing against. You know, it depends on that. I mean, if he was to get into a situation where he was in a car like, you know, 3/4 of a second clear of the rest of the field, and his teammate was like clearly not as good as him, then yeah, Lando Norris would probably win the World Championship. But let's say Lando was in Charles Leclerc's position. I don't think Lando beats Max Verstappen in a championship battle. Lando is a very good driver, don't get me wrong, but Norris versus Verstappen, I think Verstappen wins that. I think the only driver Verstappen could lose against on the current grid is Lewis Hamilton. And I know last year he beat him, and I think performed over the course of the year better than Lewis. But if there's any driver who's talented enough to beat him on the current grid, I think it's probably Lewis Hamilton. The only other driver I can think of that we haven't quite seen yet who maybe could is George Russell. Again, though, with Russell, we don't know still how, you know, how good he really is. I mean, we've seen how good he's been this season, but he's not really been in a front-running car, has he? So, I mean, we'll see what happens. But I think Lando Norris, in his F1 career, Lando will get, you know, plenty of podiums. He will win races. Not sure he'll win a ton, like between 10 and 20, I would probably say, is the amount of race wins he'll probably end up with, because one, the competition in F1 is so strong in terms of the drivers. It's probably the strongest field we've ever had in F1 ever, or at least since, you know, the days of Senna, Schumacher, Prost, Mansell, Piquet, Alesi, Berger. You know, since then, it's been, yeah, it's probably the strongest field since then. But I would argue it's the strongest field in F1 history. So it's going to be very hard for him to win races in general. But also, again, it depends on where he finds himself. Will he ever get into a team that's going to be consistent race winners? We'll have to see. We'll have to see. But I think he will win races in Formula 1, but it won't be an absolute ton. I don't think it'll be any more than 20, to be honest, in his F1 career. I'd be very surprised if he got like 25 or more, to be honest, and became one of the, you know, part of that kind of like Mansell Vettel club in terms of race wins, in terms of the numbers. I'd be very surprised if he did that. But I think Norris, he definitely is good enough to win a world championship, I think. But again, it depends in terms of him winning one. It depends on the circumstances. It really, really does. Chance of rain on Sunday equals 75%. What is the probability that Leclerc will not reach the finish line? I mean, if he doesn't get pole, I think the chances of him, making a mistake in the wet by, pushing too hard, I think there's a definite chance of that. But if he's leading and has pole, and then obviously is leading the race from the first lap, I think he's good enough that he can go the whole race without having an accident. I mean, driving around Monaco in the wet for 78 laps or 75 laps, however long the race will be, because obviously in the wet sometimes the amount of laps they do sometimes comes down if they go past the time limit, which is 2 hours. But I think it depends on where he is on the grid if that was to happen. But I really hope we get rain, because when it rains in Monaco, you really get to see just the pure brilliance and quality of these drivers, and especially around Monaco, it would be really great to see. And considering how strong the field is, when we have Hamilton, Alonso, Vettel, and Verstappen, 4 world champions on the grid, I believe. Yeah, pretty sure of that. And then you've got another 3 potential world champions. That's a very high quality grid, and I think if we got a wet Monaco Grand Prix, it would be a classic, considering the quality of the grid we have. How do you think Ricciardo will do, Eloise? As long as he doesn't crash and he doesn't, like I said, let that crash affect his confidence, and he should be in the top 10 if McLaren keep that type of speed up. Perpetual Richard says, I will love for you to do a beginner video for those of us who are new to Formula 1. To be honest, I'm not sure I'd be best at that, because I'm just not sure I'd be best at doing that. There are other channels though that have done that, but yeah. What did you have for breakfast? Most important meal of the day, so don't be caught slacking. I don't really eat breakfast, to be honest. I just wake up and eat whenever I wake up. So yeah, I don't really eat breakfast. I just eat when I want, basically. Ryan Krauser says, we're expecting rain on Sunday. Does that change predictions? Does it bring in guys like Russell and Stroll into the mix who are proven wet weather drivers? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it brings in to the mix anyone who's proven to be a good wet weather driver, say outside of that top 4, the 2 Ferrari and Red Bull drivers. Drivers like Russell, Norris, Gasly, Alonso, Vettel, Stroll, Hamilton, possibly a Magnussen. Who else have you got? An Albon as well. There's plenty of drivers outside of that, those top 2 teams that, if it does rain, could have a great, great day because of the talent they have to be able to deal with the conditions and make their way through the field. I mean, the last Monaco Grand Prix we had with rain, where it rained for about half the race, was in 2016. And we had, Hamilton, one from Ricciardo, Perez, Vettel, Alonso, Hulkenberg, Rosberg, I think was the top 7. And then I think it was Sainz in 8. That's a pretty great top 8. And I think in 2008 you had Hamilton, Kubica, Massa, Webber, Vettel, Barrichello. You know what I mean? So, in the wet around Monaco, in the wet around any classic track, you do tend to really see the great drivers or the very good separate themselves from the not so good. Right, I'll read out a couple more comments and then we'll get to the rest of the teams. Perpetual Richard, can you recommend any for me? I think Shane Bear has a couple I think there's a couple older videos which are beginner videos, and can't remember if anyone else does, but I think he does, if I remember. Paul says we still have Stroll and Latifi, don't forget. True. Right. I'm now going to move on to, I think, the rest of the team. So let's get on to Alpine, who, very contrasting day. So we'll start with Fernando Alonso. I mean, practice one wasn't great. I mean, Alpine don't tend to push as hard as other teams do in practice, so it wasn't a massive surprise. But then in practice two, Alonso, I thought, did a pretty decent job of getting into 8th place. Certainly when I didn't think Alpine would be, massively quick this weekend. So good to see Alonso looking a lot better than he did last year. Of course, last year's Monaco Grand Prix, he qualified 17th on the grid. Of course, did that last weekend in Spain. So let's hope he doesn't repeat anything close to that this weekend, because a driver of his quality we need in the top 10 or 11 on the grid, really. And certainly, like I said, if it does rain, you can guarantee he will be in there somewhere, will Fernando. And yeah, the last wet Monaco Grand Prix, he finished in 5th in a quite underpowered McLaren Honda. So yeah, he's great in the wet, especially around Monaco. But for Esteban Ocon, very poor day. He was, I think, 16th or 17th, if I remember. Let me just quickly look actually on Twitter to see if there's any news about, what happened with Ocon today. But yeah, he was really low down in practice 1, and then in practice 2 was 17th. Just had a really bad day. Yeah, Ocon was 1.3 seconds slower than Alonso in practice. I just don't understand why he was so bad, to be honest. Unless, maybe the strategy was being split in terms of letting Ocon do a bit more of a higher fuel run to try and get some data as to, what it feels like with higher fuel with these tyres. Maybe that has something to do with it, but I don't know why Alpine would do that, because this track, I mean, race pace is important to a certain extent around Monaco, but as long as you get grid position, doesn't matter about your race pace. As long as your race pace is not biblically bad, it doesn't really matter what your race pace is like, because as long as you don't get a poor start on the first lap, you're not going really to lose position to the drivers behind you. So I just don't understand why Ocon was so bad. And I've not heard any explanation when it comes to it. Actually, I'll just quickly look on the Formula 1 website to see if there's any quotes coming from what do you call it? From the teams, and see if I can find one from Esteban Ocon. Here we go. What the team said. The F1 website. Hopefully. Here we go. So this is Esteban Ocon's quote. He says, "It's good to be back driving Monaco and discover the challenges that these cars bring on the track like this, blah, 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 blah. It's clear there are some improvements we need to make to be where we want this weekend. We learned a lot today with different setups between the cars, and now there's plenty of work to do overnight in order for us to be in better shape tomorrow." Right, so by the sounds of it, looks as though they were trying different setups, which, I mean, you can have your opinion on that as to whether that, whether you would have done that, but I'm not sure if I was running things, I'm not sure I would have done that in terms of dedicating that much time to, looking at loads of different setups, because now, Ocon only has really one session to get his confidence going for qualifying, which is practice 3. And of course, if he ends up bidding it in qualifying, he probably won't even do qualifying. So it's not great, leaving him with not much time on the table. But Yeah. Alpine with Alonso look good, but it's hard to say really where they'll be. They're probably the sixth at best, the sixth best team, I would say, around this track. But we'll have to see if other teams, like the next team we're going to go on to, can improve, such as Alfa Romeo. Now, coming into this weekend, we thought Alfa Romeo would be the dark horse and kind of doing what Lando Norris and McLaren in general have done so far this weekend in practice 1 and practice 2, be really high up and surprisingly very quick. But Valtteri Bottas had an MGUK failure in practice 1, which meant he missed pretty much all of practice 1. And then in practice 2, he only did, I think, 1 or 2 soft tyre runs. Most of it was on the medium tyre, and I think they just focused a bit more on higher fuel running and running also on the harder compounds of tyre, such as the medium compound tyre. So it's hard, really, to say where they are. We'll see tomorrow. They ended up, with Valtteri Bottas in 13th. I'm hoping that is nowhere near what they can actually do, because if that is, then my God, will they be disappointing coming from this weekend? And they will be disappointed a lot coming away from this Grand Prix. But yeah, hopefully they were just, focusing on other things in practice today, because I would be gutted, honestly, if they weren't that quick in qualifying. But we'll see. We'll see in practice 3. Now, we'll go on to Haas F1. And in the hands of Kevin Magnussen, they look pretty quick. They look like they are contenders for a top 10 grid position, which, of course, for a team like Haas is pretty much the aim, is to get into the top 10 and then make sure they can hang on in the Grand Prix. Magnussen will be very close, I think, to a top 10. He will be around 9th, 10th, 11th. I'd be very surprised if he ended up any higher than P9 on the grid. If he was to get into the top 10, Magnussen looking very, very good. No problems with him. Mick Schumacher had a troubled day today. Practice 1, he had I think an MGUK failure, just like Valtteri Bottas, and ended up grinding to a halt. Funnily enough, exactly where his father did 11 years ago in the race for the Monaco Grand Prix, which was a funny coincidence, to be honest, even though, of course, he won't be laughing about that. But yeah, missed the rest of practice 1. Then practice 2, came out on track and he pushed. He tried his best, but the pace did not really seem to be there from Mick Schumacher. He was about 0.6 of a second slower than Kevin Magnussen. If he's like that tomorrow, then that is going to be a very poor result he will be getting, because the grid will be very, very close tomorrow. And if you're that far off your teammate, you're going to be ending up miles away from where you should be. And I think Mick is at a big risk of being knocked out in Q1 tomorrow. Big, big risk. And if he gets knocked out in Q1, I'm sorry, that is poor. He should be, at worst, at the top end of Q2, in 11th or 12th place. He should not be 15th, 16th. Especially when you consider this time last year, in a terrible Haas car, he qualified, 15th? So in this year's Haas car, he should be, 5 positions really better than that. I really hope he doesn't have that bad of a day, because if he does, then that is just going to be awful, honestly. Because I really hope he has, a top 10 grid position for the race. And I really hope he can get into Q3, because for me, that is what, around a track like this, again, it separates the very good from the good, or the great from the good. These type of tracks, he has got to show himself at these tracks. Got to show that he can be a very good Formula One driver. And from what we've seen so far this weekend, I am not so sure he is in for anywhere near close to what would be considered a good result. I hope he is not in 15th or 16th tomorrow. But if he is, I will not hesitate to go in, because I'm sorry. I know he had the problem with his car, but no excuses. Around Monaco, with, when you consider his teammate is like around 10th place with his pace, I'm sorry, there's no excuses. Mick has got to be doing better than what he's been doing so far. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for now, but we'll see tomorrow what he can do. Hopefully, it's a lot better than what he's done so far. Now we'll go on to the Alpha Tauri team, who had a very good day. It's probably the best day of practice they've had so far this season, maybe since Bahrain at the last point. They had a weekend like this so far. Both cars in the top 10 in practice 2. Gasly in P7 and Tsunoda 10th. Gasly was in 6th place in practice 1, and Tsunoda was, I think, around where he finished in practice 2 in 10th place. Yeah, AlphaTauri looking very quick, and I would say coming into qualifying tomorrow, AlphaTauri probably have the 5th quickest car, which is very surprising. I did not think they would be in that type of position. I thought they would be kind of where Aston Martin are, which is 12th, between 12th and 15th or something like that. But it seems as though they are a bit better than that. I mean, I know, by the way, with Aston Martin, I know Sebastian Vettel's up in 9th, but I'm not sure that is totally representative of where Aston Martin truly are in the scheme of things. But yeah, it's very, very good to see that AlphaTauri, were so quick. Great to see Pierre Gasly doing so well, of course. We've not really seen that many times this season. We kind of saw it in Miami, where he qualified 7th or 8th, I think it was. I think it might be 7th in qualifying it was in Miami, which is probably the best qualifying result he's had so far this season. Definitely the closest to what we saw from last year from the Frenchman. But yeah, Pierre has been fantastic so far this weekend. Also, again, shout out Yuki Tsunoda, who I think has been very good. Because if you remember last year's Monaco Grand Prix, he was really bad. He was like 15th or 16th, basically, in the race. So good to see he's in the top 10 this weekend. And I'll just quickly read out this quote from Gasly, who says, AlphaTauri enjoyed a lot of positives as he aims to avoid silly situations in Monaco qualifying. Let me just find the quote quickly. As he says, it was difficult, but like always in Monaco, I must say I'm really happy with this Friday in terms of performance. We were definitely always on top of the midfield, so that's really positive. Obviously, we're working quite hard at the wheel, but that's what you would expect in Monaco. So far, we've shown a lot of positives, I would say, on this Friday. I managed to do clean laps, but put things together and be competitive. I would still not say I'm feeling 100% comfortable because I touched the wall a couple times here and there, trying to find the limit. But overall, I am pleased. Pretty pleased, and we'll try and do a step forward again tomorrow. And yeah, he should be very pleased because it's definitely a lot stronger than what we saw in Barcelona. In Barcelona, they looked pretty bad at times. Certainly on Gasly's end, who was complaining a lot about the handling of his car. And for tomorrow, I definitely would have to have them as contenders with both drivers, both cars, for a Q3 finish, getting into Q3 and finishing in the top 10. And certainly Pierre Gasly has to be considered to be the furthest forward AlphaTauri driver this weekend, and most likely the man who will get the best result for the team out of this weekend's Grand Prix. I just want to quickly, though, get onto this stat with AlphaTauri that I made in the build-up to this stream. And this is, by the way, this stat is real. I didn't make it up, of course. You can go back and look at the qualifying results when it comes to these stats I've got. So Pierre Gasly has qualified inside the top 10 for every Monaco Grand Prix in F1 that he's raced in. He was 10th in 2018, qualified 5th, I think, in 2019, but started 8th because of a penalty for something, I think blocking someone. And then 2021, last year, he qualified, I think, in 6th place. So in Monaco, Pierre Gasly is one of the best when it comes to this track. But also, this is the stat that really surprised me. AlphaTauri / Toro Rosso, of course used to be Toro Rosso, have qualified inside the top 10 for every Monaco Grand Prix since 2013. And I went back and looked through all the Grand Prix, and it's true. Every Monaco Grand Prix since 2013, they've had at least one car in the top 10 in qualifying. Great record for such a small team. I think in 2013 and 14, I think it was Jean-Eric Vergne, and then 2015 it was Verstappen. 2016, I think it was Sainz and Kvyat. 2017, it was Sainz and maybe Kvyat as well. 2018, it was Gasly. 2019, it was Kvyat and Albon. And then last year, it was Gasly. So yeah, should be. It should be correct, that stat. But again, for such a small team to get into the top 10 consistently for basically 10 years in Monaco, honestly, that is a great thing. It really does deserve a round of applause considering how great they have been with such a small budget over the years. But now we'll move on to the final couple teams. Aston Martin. Sebastian Vettel again is showing his class by getting 9th in practice 2. Not a surprise that he's looking good around here. He's always been good at Monaco. Last year he was probably one of the best, if not the best driver last year at last year's Monaco Grand Prix. Qualifying 8th in a pretty average Aston Martin car and then finishing 5th ahead of Lewis Hamilton and being, I think he jumped Lewis Hamilton in the pit stop phase in that particular Grand Prix last year. I'll have to go back and maybe watch it to see if that was the case. But yeah, last year was amazing. And like I said, pretty much consistently, Sebastian Vettel is great around Monte Carlo. I'm still not sure, though, Aston Martin will be quite in the top 10, though, when it comes to qualifying at the end of the day. Even though Sebastian Vettel has a very, very impressive stat that I'll get into in a moment, I just don't think they've got as quick of a car as, say, obviously the two top teams, but Mercedes, McLaren, and AlphaTauri, to me, look like they're too quick. But if it is very close on time, you can trust, I think, Sebastian to maybe pull it out of the bag and put himself in the top 10. I will say as well, Lance Stroll is not looking too bad, considering in qualifying here in the past, he's not had that many great results. So it's good to see that Lance is, looking good here in Monaco. So yeah, not too bad from Aston Martin. I mean, coming into this Grand Prix, if you asked me a month ago, maybe not even a month ago, probably 7 or 8 weeks ago, how do I think they would do around Monaco? I'd think they'd be like 15th and 16th, maybe at the absolute peak. But to be, 9th and I think was it 13th or something from practice 2 is pretty great. It is pretty great, and they can be pretty proud of the improvements they have made, even though, yes, it does look like a green Red Bull. Quickly though, yeah, Sebastian Vettel has a very impressive stat. Since 2009, and I wasn't able in time to design a stat graphic for it, but since 2009, Sebastian Vettel has qualified in the top 10 for every Monaco Grand Prix since, like I said, 2009. Obviously, so many races for Red Bull, and then for Ferrari, and even last year for Aston Martin, he qualified 8th, and like I said, went up to finish in 5th. There's only been one Monaco Grand Prix in his entire career where he did not qualify in the top 10, which was 2008. Saying that year he still finished 5th in a Toro Rosso in the wet. So Sebastian, definitely one to look out for, not just because he's good around Monaco, but also, of course, because he is a 4-time world champion. And now finally we'll go on to Williams. Alex Albon is looking really good around here, and he looks like he's having a lot of fun. And I saw him a couple times during the sessions, and he looked like he was... The car looked pretty decent in the slow speed corners, so Albon's not looking too bad. May cause a bit of a surprise and may be able to sneak himself into Q2, given how things are looking. Latifi will be at the back, there's no doubt about it. He's been absolutely terrible so far this weekend, and of course, pretty much terrible so far this season. But yeah, if there's anyone at Williams, as usual so far this season, if there's anyone at Williams to look out for, it is Alex Albon, because he looks like he could maybe sneak himself into Q2 and get a 14th or 15th, which would be pretty good. And if it does rain then on the Sunday, you never know what Alex Albon could do. But that, guys, is pretty much my qualifying preview. I'll quickly, though, before we move on to anything else, I'll quickly come to you guys again in the live chat to see if there's any more comments that I haven't read out. Let's see if I can read out any that I haven't read out so far. But yeah, if you have any questions, by the way, that you want to ask me in the final few minutes here, then make sure to go ahead and put it in the chat, and I'll make sure to answer it for you in the best way I can. Let me just look. Solomon back with those accusations about Mercedes' car, saying they are cutting Mercedes slack. They showed all the wings in comparison. They know. I think that's just a bit, yeah, we might be just getting a bit on the conspiracy theory side of things, I think, maybe there. Josiah says they didn't start on pole last year. Max started P2 with an empty P1. Yeah, technically, yeah, I think you are correct with that. But then again, technically, he did start first for the race, if you know what I mean. But I get what you mean. Judson Zimmerman, it will probably rain. What do you think about a wet race? I think it'll be great if we get some rain. If it does rain, really, I think you'd have to look out for just drivers more than cars, because I think the drivers themselves will show more so their, qualities, rather than certain cars showing qualities in the wet. Lilo, I think it is, or Leo. Well, yeah, I think that might be it. It says, but your site looks very cool. Thank you very much for that. Stefan says Leclerc gonna get pole, but Max will win the race. If Max starts second, I can see it happening. Like I said, if they can stay close enough to the point where the pit stops come, I think that could happen for sure. Let's see if there's anything else here. And someone's in chat there. Steve Jones saying, come on, Hamilton, kick ass. And I think that's pretty much all the comments that I think are in the chat, that I don't think I've read out any more. I don't think I missed any. Let me just check. No, I don't think so. So I think I'll come to the end of the stream here. Thank you guys, by the way, for coming along. So many of you coming along to this qualifying preview. And like I said, don't forget to join me for tomorrow for the qualifying. No, hold on. Let me do that again. Don't forget as well to join me tomorrow for the Practice 3 watch along. Firstly, 11:45 a.m. UK time for the first stream of the day. And then again at 2:30 p.m. UK time for the qualifying watch along. The main event, really, of the weekend, unless we get rain on Sunday. So don't forget to join me for those two very important sessions tomorrow and those two streams tomorrow. And again, if you are new to the channel, then don't forget to subscribe. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. And as well, smash the like button, share this video and channel everywhere you can. And don't forget as well to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5. And don't forget to join my Discord server, link below in the description for more content like this. It would be great if you could join our community. But guys, yeah, until my first stream tomorrow, thanks for today. And yeah, until that first stream tomorrow, and for qualifying day in Monaco, one of the best days of the year. Until then, it's been me, ChazHD. Goodbye.